Non-Binary Elephant
podcast.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Non-Binary Elephant podcast, sponsored by Miles Franklin, protecting your family's financial future from corporate greed and government corruption. The web address is in the description below. Now Jay's going to introduce the next guest because it's all on him. He's booked this. I've had nothing to do with it. He has got something he'd like to say about last week's podcast first, haven't you, Jay?
Yeah, I wasn't in the best of shape really. I yawned quite a lot. It's been pointed out by various people on the
10 yawns at last count.
Yeah. In my defence, I did have to do the podcast lying down on a bed because we had loads of technical issues, so we couldn't be in the same room. So that's challenging to be lying down and not yawn for an hour.
I'm confused as to why you had to lie down though, because you had to be in a different room. You couldn't stand in that room. You couldn't sit in that room.
For an hour, no, wasn't happening. Anyway, apologies for that. It was nothing to do with the podcast. Podcast was still very good, I thought. Lots of interesting information.
Yes, it was very interesting, yes.
So we're going a slightly different direction this week. For the first time, we've got an alternative health therapist on, which I'm very excited about. A guy called Clive Carle. He's recognised as one of the leading health researchers. Spent nearly 30 years studying the most effective natural health solutions available. So this should be a very interesting chat.
Looking forward to it.
We're delighted to have him on the show. I met him in Mexico a few months ago. He's a lovely gentleman. Clive, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Fantastic to be with you.
Yeah, you too. It was a pleasure to meet you in Mexico a few weeks ago. I'm looking forward to chatting a bit more now. One thing I find interesting is the alternative media. There's a lot of great people putting out great information, and you hear a lot of the information people put out, but not necessarily a lot about the person putting it out. But looking into your story, it's a very personal story as to how you've ended up in the alternative media and on alternative treatments. So I think a really good place to start is to go back to the beginning of how you first got into alternative therapies.
Okay, well, very, very briefly, when I was 11, I went fishing in the Caribbean with a bucket with a glass bottom, and you could see the fish. And my friend really wanted to catch fish. He didn't mind skewering the worm on a hook, whereas I was really squeamish about it, and I was dreading the idea of taking the fish hook out of the fish's mouth while it was still alive. I really didn't like the idea of that, whereas my friend didn't care. And he caught 20 fish, I caught 0, and I could see what was happening. The fish weren't biting on my bait. If we swapped fishing rods, immediately the fish stopped. At the moment I touched the fishing rod, the frenzy to eat the bait stopped, and they turned around and suddenly saw, my friend was holding my rod, and I realized the fish were reading my mind. Essentially, the only explanation I had for it was we're out there for hours, I caught nothing. The fish did not want to be caught by me, but they wanted to be caught by my friend. So then when I was about 15, I had an out-of-body experience. Suddenly found myself floating on the ceiling. And then by the time I was about 20, I went to a sort of esoteric school for a couple of years and learned how to do hands-off healing and all sorts of stuff like that. But I'd never used it. And then I went into the contact lens business. And while I was in the contact lens business, I made a mistake and took an antibiotic. And the next thing I know, I can't see properly, and I can't get dressed anymore, and I can't drive the car. And in fact, I've become type 1 diabetic. They think I've got a tropical disease. My whole body's falling to pieces, and they put me in hospital. And after weeks in hospital, again, I got arthritis so badly I can't actually do anything. They say it's hopeless. You're a hopeless case. But I'd figured it out myself. I'd realized that I was low on minerals, particularly being arthritis. I was low on magnesium. So I started supplementing with magnesium, and lo and behold, all the arthritis disappeared, and I more or less went back to normal.
Wow. Well, the magnesium's quite an interesting point, because we spoke about that when we met. You're talking about the sort of myth we have of calcium, and that bones are all about calcium and so on, but magnesium is actually what most people are very deficient in.
Yeah, I would say, give or take a couple of percent, everybody's low on magnesium. It's not in the food anymore, and if you're stressed, and everybody's stressed, how the body copes with stress is by using up your magnesium reserves. So, magnesium is the most important mineral of all. And if I may, I could go through the list of magnesium deficiencies, and people listening could spot if they've got one.
Yeah, fantastic.
So the deficiencies include things like constipation, anxiety, worry, panic attacks, muscle cramps, maybe the backs of your legs or your feet. it might include hiccups, might include arthritis, might include heart arrhythmia, where the heart beats out of rhythm, menstrual cramps, spasms, and there are several others. But most people, the older they are, the more they're going to recognize some of those symptoms. But a lot of people have got them. Restless leg is another one, where people sort of involuntary, their legs kick out at night. So almost everything actually has its basis in magnesium. The center of blood is iron, but the center of a plant, the chlorophyll, of course, is magnesium. And people probably aren't eating enough vegetables, arguably, because if they were, they probably wouldn't be quite so depleted in magnesium. But a lot of people, we should be getting magnesium each time we eat salt, but unfortunately most salt that you buy in shops has been manipulated and is not healthy stuff. Real healthy salt, they call it Celtic salt. That's that grey stuff that if you went down to the beach, you just collected some salt, dried it out, some sea, it would be grey and it would be damp. But of course the salt manufacturers, the supermarkets, don't think that people want grey damp salt, so they bleach it, and in doing that they're reducing the magnesium content. There are, I say, the whole host of reasons why we're all low on magnesium, and it's huge. I had somebody just the other day, they'd got an Achilles tendon thing, and it was really hurting a lot. I gave them some magnesium spray, liquid form, told them to rub it on. 2 minutes later, the pain had gone.
I was on doing the same thing. I had brachial neuritis in my shoulder, and I was told to use magnesium spray. It really stung. I remember it really stinging the skin, but it really eased the pain after a while.
Well, the thing is that if it stings, that is a sign that you're low.
Oh, okay. Oh God, I was low then.
After a few days, the stinging gets less and less and less. And so that's one of the things that puts people off. Oh, it stung me. But actually, at the beginning, the first week or something, one could, with the liquid, pour half of it to the side and fill that bottle up with water, just dilute it in half, and then it won't sting so much. You've got to use twice as much, but it won't sting so much.
I'll bear that in mind. The other thing I was told to use that for, actually, was because I struggle to sleep. My brain's always going all over the shop, and was to rub some in my feet before bed. Apparently that helped. I don't know if that was a myth or...
Did it work?
Well, yeah.
You noticed it worked.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was because it was in my mind or not. But to be honest, I'm one of those people that I don't really care if it's in my mind or not. If it means I've slept, then it's done the trick, isn't it? So it's kind of irrelevant, really.
Well, exactly. But the soles of the feet, of course, are those reflexology points. So just rubbing the soles of the feet alone is going to have some sort of beneficial effect. But magnesium, you need a bit of quantity. So while rubbing it onto the soles of the feet would be great, rubbing it on everywhere would be even better. But while the liquid stuff is great for muscle aches and muscle pains and stuff like that, just popping capsules of high quality magnesium is a lot more convenient.
But I've been taking them every day since we met, and I do feel a bit better. You find a lot more energised in the morning. When you wake up, you're not dreading that alarm going off. You feel a lot more awake pretty much straight away as well. I've noticed that a lot.
Well, very good. I mean, I find, and a lot of people do, I noticed, that if you decided to do without the alarm clock, that actually in your head you've got a brilliant alarm clock. And, I find if I say to myself before bed, I want to get up at, 7:15 or whatever it might be, that if I just trust my brain can do it, it can do it. The only time it lets me down is if I'm travelling somewhere and I'm worried about missing the plane, and then I wake up at 4 in the morning. But
I think that's everyone, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely. Is that what I'm loving during chatting to you? Is that I can hear the birds tweeting?
I know.
That's amazing. I can just hear them going in my headphones, and it's great.
It's brilliant, yeah.
Because we're coming from the centre of the city. It's a complete docile, and you're obviously sat somewhere beautiful, but I can hear it. So I'm sort of part of it. So.
It's a lovely view.
What? Sorry, go on.
Let me say about the birds in London. I'm older than you guys, significantly so. But I remember the day that the sparrows died in London. There used to be billions of sparrows. So this sort of noise in London was normal because you couldn't get rid of the bloody things. There were just loads of sparrows, and then one day they all disappeared. and I don't know what they switched on or what they sprayed, but London got significantly more silent. This must have been, I think, 15 years ago-ish, maybe a bit more.
That's interesting.
It doesn't surprise me.
It's a dark place, London.
It is. There's something about hearing birds sing and noises you'd associate with the countryside that just make you feel happier. It's almost like a natural endorphin.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back with the magnesium, would you say that's the most common mistake that you come across that people make, that they don't have enough of that?
Yeah, not enough magnesium. That's the biggest one. I've tested loads of people's mineral levels and vitamin levels and so on. Magnesium is always number one, and it's cheap, and it's often immediate. If somebody's having a heart attack and they get rushed into the emergency room, what do? They inject you with magnesium. Stops your heart attack right away.
Wow. Didn't know that.
But it's something you hear very little about compared to, you've got to have vitamin C, B12s, irons, all those things. You don't hear magnesium mentioned in the same breath as much, do you?
No. Well, their sales have just gone up because I'm going to go and buy some.
Yeah. So what are you up to at the moment then? From because obviously you run your clinic as well, and you do lots of lectures and workshops, and so what are you up to for the next few months?
Well, I've just done a big sort of tour around the place, because I like giving talks, especially at conferences, because you get to meet people, really interesting people. And but for now, I've got a couple of masterclasses coming up, and if people go onto my website, which is clivedecale.com, CliveDeCarle, clivedecale.com, there's an events page which shows where I'm doing talks. I do some regular talks around the place, and what's good, what I'd like is if anybody has got groups of people that are already interested in the sort of stuff we're talking about. If it's 50 people or more, I'd be happy to come and talk to them, because the information I give is actually quite simple, really. It's quite a lot of it, but it's not difficult to grasp, and I want people to get control of their own health, start taking their health back, because the only reason I got into this business in the first place, I wanted to foment peaceful change, but I realized everyone was too ill, and I thought, well, if I can show them how they can fix their health, then maybe they'll listen to some of my more radical ideas.
Right. See, one of the things I find the most interesting in alternative health compared to mainstream health is the last thing mainstream medicine wants is for you to be in charge of your own health, because it's a customer lost, effectively, isn't it? A customer cured is a customer lost. And the independent alternative healthcare, that's the main objective, is for people to be in charge of their own health, to be able to look after themselves with their nutrition and so on. And it's just such a contrast. I find it fascinating.
That's what I was actually going to ask, if he'd come up with against any resistance from Big Pharma, in the past.
Well, not directly, but indirectly. I mean, when I was doing stuff with UK Column about 5 years ago, one day we woke up and all our YouTube viewing numbers had been turned right down to virtually nothing. Then some British government quango rang up UK Column and said, we're going to close you down. You've got to take all your videos down within 24 hours or face a £250,000 fine. They said to me that my programs were too television-like. I mean, come on, we were working with blue screens on a room the size of a cupboard, and we were interviewing people on Skype. How's that television-like? And that they wanted me to give whatever I was going to talk about. The government wanted information 2 weeks in advance so they could make sure it was correct. So I interviewed Kerry Rivera about 3 days ago. She wrote the book Reversing the Symptoms Known as Autism. And a little time ago, Amazon stopped selling her book. Then last week, I think it was, or the week before, eBay stopped selling her book. Then she had 35,000 email contacts on Yahoo. Her email account was closed. Facebook shut her down. She's effectively disappeared. Not only can't she find a lot of the people that she wants, they can't find her.
It's what Orwell called, is it the forgotten people? Where you basically just delete people off the face of the earth via the censorship.
Yeah, well, and that's happening right now. So I mean, it started with me. I'd say about 5 years ago. We actually found ways to put all the information back up again, but it was the work was just outrageous. And about 2 weeks ago, they took one of my videos down, which was about autism and cancer. A few weeks before, they took one down that was about cannabis. But this time, they've taken it down and given me a strike. So if they take another one down, then that's 2 weeks I can't post. Then if I do it a third time, then I'm banned.
Is this YouTube? Is it?
Yeah, YouTube.
Yeah. Are you using any other video uploading sites? Just out of interest.
If there's anybody listening to this who wants to upload my stuff, upload it onto Steemit or DTube or any of the platforms, I need some help because I don't have the time.
Right, gotcha. Because I would suggest we use one as well that is called BitChute, which is really, really good. And the guy's a really lovely guy, and he's really into this sort of stuff. So
that does it automatically as well.
It does it automatically from YouTube, yeah. So if you post on your YouTube, it'll automatically go there. And then obviously, yeah, and then if they delete off YouTube, well, it's there anyway. So it's definitely worth looking into. The reason I say it is
that easy.
This guy is a lovely guy, and someone that we know was having their account deleted, and it was pretty obvious they'd, like yourself, been given a few strikes, and it was like, okay, it's going to go. So the guy from BitChute actually went and downloaded all of the material so that when they deleted him, he had it all saved. So it's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, some people have lost everything.
Oh, absolutely.
They focus all your attention on YouTube and Facebook, and without your own website, some people have lost their entire archives of videos in the last decade.
Yes, well, I'm in danger of doing that. That's why I need somebody who can help me with that. If there's anybody listening who wants to do that, they'll get a health education, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's the most important thing. You only have one opportunity, if you like, and you want to look after your body, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. That's if you're healthy, you're a millionaire, aren't you?
Absolutely. So I've been looking through your website, obviously, while we've been doing some research for this, and something that obviously stands out, which is a lot in alternative medicine, you specialise in identifying the root causes of the illness rather than simply treating the symptoms, which is what mainstream medicine does. If you've got a headache, your problem must be in your head, when invariably it's not, it's somewhere else. I mean, that's surely obvious that, where something hurts isn't necessarily where the problem is, but mainstream medicine cracks on as if everything, it's a nail, we'll hammer it down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's medicine by 7-year-olds. I mean, the surgery that they do, the worst things I've ever seen in my life have been post-surgery. I mean, when they've given up, they've done their surgery, and I've seen people with bits of plumbing sticking out of their heads, where the brain surgery's gone wrong. I mean, it's just, literally a 7-year-old, you'd think it was done by a 7-year-old. I saw somebody whose head was twice the size of a normal head because of the swelling.
Wow.
And that was because of surgery.
Jeez, that is it's butchery in a lot of ways, isn't it? Mainstream surgery still, it's dark ages.
Yeah, I'm having surgery in 20 days, so feeling good.
Yeah, Gaz has got to have a hernia.
No, it's not a hernia. I've got groin surgery on the 25th. Yeah, so they thought it was a hernia, and then when they inspected, it turned out that 2 of the 5 ligaments in my groin were torn off the bone, and it wasn't a hernia at all. So, but hopefully, I won't have any plumbing hanging out.
Yeah,
he's gone very quiet.
I'm just thinking about what to advise you. Did you have an accident, skiing accident or something?
No, it was football. It was about 2 years ago as well, and I kind of just got on with the pain and just thought, well, I'm getting old anyway, and it turns out that no, it was a bit more severe. So, but,
wow. I would, if I was in that situation, I would reconsider if there are any other options. I think I would go to the greatest people in the world, usually who have YouTube sites, like John Bergman. Come across John Bergman?
I haven't, but I'm typing him down now.
He's a chiropractor in California, and must have at least 500 videos out there. And I would put in his name and repairing ligaments, and see if there's a chance you can just regrow them.
Right. Okay. I shall do that. It would save a fortune.
Well, you could probably you could fly to LA probably to see him for less than it would cost you to have your treatment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think he's booked up about 9 months in advance.
That's I can live on one leg for 9 months.
But the thing is that we are self-repairing. Your body hasn't forgotten how to.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I lost you there.
Oh, yeah, you're back.
I was saying, I'm not sure whether you got it, that your body hasn't forgotten how to self-repair. And just because the doctors say it's impossible, the doctors, when I was ill 33 years ago and in hospital, they said it's impossible. They were wrong. They were totally wrong. And just because they say you need an operation, well, you go to a surgeon, they tend to say you need an operation.
Yeah, no, I get that totally. Yeah, it's without that there is no surgeon.
No, quite. So, I think you need to do your own personal research to really find out whether it's necessary. You could put into Google, for instance, ligament tear natural cure, and what up will pop various things. You might find that oregano oil diluted and rubbed on topically over the injury might help. You might find that comfrey, wild or organic comfrey ointment, which sometimes goes under the name of bone set, bone knit. There are you're not the first person to have pulled a ligament, and you're not the first person who's probably been told nothing can be fixed.
No, of course.
I've seen people fix broken bones using comfrey and oregano oil and various things without needing the plaster cast.
Wow.
Because that's, we think, well, that's how you have to do it. No, there are other ways. Always other ways to do stuff, generally. And, if what they're offering you has a price tag attached, one's got to think, well, maybe there's another way. I'm really into the free ways of doing stuff. And when I give talks, or I do quite a lot of day-long workshops, which if anybody's interested in this stuff, I'd advise people to come to the day workshops, because I can cover a lot of ground. At the moment, for instance, my reading material is about electrotherapy from the 1920s and 1930s. I've got a book at the moment written in 1937 about a type of electrotherapy called diathermy. And this is basically Tesla technology. And up until the Second World War, which was really the time that the pharmaceutical industry totally corrupted governments and took over as a monopoly, why I'm interested in the late 30s and electromedicine is that it was at its height then. I mean, at that point, there were still 20 homeopathic hospitals in England. Now, you don't get to be a hospital if you're not any good, right? So 20 homeopathic hospitals there were, but electrotherapy, there was an electrotherapy department in every hospital in the country, every single one, because from the 1870s onwards, they were using electrical current to heal all sorts of things. And in 1891, Nikola Tesla realized that his staff were getting healed by the high frequency, high voltage electricity that was around them while they were working. And he started inventing machines, devices to treat people with. And he got a small way towards it and showed his first device in 1893 at the Chicago World's Fair. And then various other scientists that he collaborated with took the work on and started developing devices. And so I've got several old devices, and while there are some new ones which arguably are better, the advantage of the old ones is they're using genuine Tesla coils, and electronics work just great, but the old way of doing things with coil technology was a very powerful medium, and you create scalar energy when you're using Tesla coils. And you probably know that regular electromagnetic waves are all exactly that, they're waves, but scalar energy is linear. In other words, it goes in a straight line at the speed of light or faster, and it's a different type of energy. And so I've got several scalar energy devices, and it's very interesting because I've got one which you just run in a room. You don't have to touch anybody with it. You just switch it on in the room, and you can put supplements, vitamin C or an essential oil or anything you might want on the transmitter, and you can transmit via scalar energy the frequencies of medicines. And it's amazing how many people notice the difference. 'Cause I put them on the talk. It's amazing. It's quite surprising. And so there's a whole raft of electromagnetic devices out there which have been completely ignored by everybody pretty much.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, is that what you think will be the future then, in terms of how you do things and how we do things?
Well, it's always a balance, because at the core level, everybody's low on minerals. These days, everybody is low on minerals, and that's what makes us up at the very core. So I always start with the elements, like, are you drinking enough water? Is it proper water, or is it poisoned? Are you eating organic food? You start with air, earth, fire, water. You're getting enough sunshine, that sort of thing. Then it's the minerals. Are you getting enough magnesium? Are you getting what you need? Then are you getting the vitamins? Are you getting the amino acids? And so on down the line. But I use electromedicine a lot.
See, that's where the whole alternative movement collaborates there. You talk about those energies and how you can emit something into a room and that can have a positive effect on your health. Without understanding the way reality works, i.e. it's holographic, therefore you put something in the holographic field, it's going to have an effect on the hologram, i.e. us. That sounds completely crazy, doesn't it?
Well, homeopathy has been proved for a couple of hundred years now. You can dilute something 30 times, so there's nothing left, less than nothing, and it still works. The Queen uses it on her racehorses, so it must be all right.
I'm sure they use it themselves then. They seem to live forever.
Of course they do, yeah.
Well, homeopathy is so powerful, but then is also, homeopathy works, there's no doubt about it, because it works on animals, but on a similar level, the mind is so ridiculously powerful. Did you know that chemotherapy works 2.7% of the time, whereas the placebo works at least 20% of the time? So that tells you something. But if the placebo is white, okay, well maybe it's 25% of the time if you deliver the placebo with the right words. But if it's blue, the placebo works better. If it comes in a capsule instead of a tablet, it works better still. If it comes in a capsule that's 2 colours, works better still. If it comes in a capsule with 2 colours and a letter stamped on it, works even better, and so on. So, you can get 50% success rate with a placebo. You can get higher. So I no longer know what's real and what isn't. Clearly, you need minerals, because you need them. There is definitely some transmutation of matter going on, because you can feed chickens food without any calcium, yet the eggs have contained calcium. That's not meant to happen, to change one metal for another, but it clearly does. So there's a lot going on. One of my best results ever was I had this guy come, and he'd got some eyesight problems and some brain problems, and he was in pain. So at that point I had 4 frequency generators, and I wired them all up together, and I explained to him exactly what frequencies I was going to use to trigger healing of his eyesight and so on. Anyway, an hour later, he's thrilled. Just thrilled, because everything's got better. And I glance over, and I realised I'd forgotten to switch the machines on.
Just do that every week and just save money on electricity.
Yeah, you're right.
Jeez, that's incredible.
The power of the mind is insane, though. And it's that whole thing, isn't it, when, we've had this conversation with Dad before, where someone will be diagnosed, say, with cancer, and the doctor will say you've got 6 weeks to live, and that's it, they'll live 6 weeks.
Oh, absolutely.
But if he said 6 months, it'd be 6 months. It's in your head, isn't it? A lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. And excuse me for a second. There is a very interesting study that was done on knee surgery. They got 200 people, and they all needed the same knee surgery, basically. Very simple operation, which could be totally avoided, obviously, with magnesium and various things. Anybody thinking of a knee or hip operation or anything, don't do it, because you can repair that. if it's bone on bone where it's fused, well, then you're in trouble. But otherwise, if it's not fused, you can still move it. Then you can just regrow it. Anyway, the sham knee surgery. So they take 100 of these knee surgery patients. Wheel them into surgery, do the operation. Then with the other 100, they give them the anaesthetic, they wheel them into surgery, and they cut the knee, but they don't do the operation. They just do the cut. So from the outside, you can't tell if they've had the operation or not. But they had all the monitors running from a real operation. So if they came out of their anaesthetic slightly, they would believe that a real operation was still going on. All the people were there and so on. So 200 people. Who gets better, quicker, faster? The people who didn't have the real operation, just had the cut.
Wow.
The power of the mind literally is incredible. You see these placebo studies all the time. I remember one a couple of years ago. I think we posted a story about it on the website, and it was to do with pills that help reduce body fat, basically, by raising body temperature or something naturally. Anyway,
Right.
And half the people in the study were taking them, and half the people were just taking a placebo. And the people that were taking the placebo over the course, I think it was a 4-week period, actually lost more body fat because they believed they were taking this thing.
So the placebo worked better than the real thing.
It did, yeah. It was incredible.
That must mean the real thing had a negative effect.
It was incredible. I mean, it's just, there's so many stories like that it shocks me, really, that, again, when you talk about homeopathy as well, how many provable, really positive reviews there should be of it because of how many people it's helped over the years. Yet in the mainstream, it's still looked upon as a bit of a hippie alternative kind of, if mainstream doesn't work, we might try this.
Well, not even that. They openly mock it.
They do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
the government was bought and paid for in 1939 when the Cancer Act and so on came in, giving the monopoly to doctors. The press was bought and paid for in the 30s. And the biggest advertiser worldwide is the pharmaceutical industry. They don't advertise in England, but everywhere else they do.
God, there'd be no American television if they didn't advertise pharmaceutical adverts.
Well, exactly. So the press are unlikely to bite the hand that feeds them.
No, absolutely. And that's one of my biggest frustrations with the media is if you have sponsors in that kind of old corporate model that they have now, you're always going to have a conflict of interest. It's always going to affect your message. You might not think it will, but it will.
Yeah, of course
it will.
And it's obvious that it does all the time. There's I watched a couple of videos in the last couple of weeks about the measles vaccine sort of propaganda that they're pushing in America, and there was one particular one on NBC, and it was insane. And they showed all this propaganda, and this guy just went through all their main sponsors, and they were all this same company that were in charge of that particular vaccine, of that measles vaccine.
Yeah.
And it's not even subtle at all.
No, it's not subtle. It's not subtle. While you talk about cancer and the Cancer Act there, I think that's obviously quite an interesting topic for us to talk about now, because that is, I suppose, what you would call the sort of disease, illness of our generation of the 21st century that affects most people. It affects, was it 1 in 3 are affected directly or indirectly?
I think it's higher than that now, isn't it?
What's your thoughts on that and the various alternative treatments to that?
Well, one of the things is to understand that the tests for cancer can be way more dangerous than people think. An autopsy turns out, on average, everybody's had cancer 6 times in their lives, never knew they had it, and recovered. So what if you get tested one of those 6 times, and they say, oh, you've got cancer? Well, I haven't got any symptoms, doctor. Oh, but, we'll better do a biopsy. So they do a biopsy. They stick a bloody great big needle in with a sort of claw-like thing to rip some flesh out, and they puncture the tumour. Tumour's usually about 7 protective layers that the body wouldn't wrap a tumour up in 7 protective layers unless it had a reason to do it. So what they do is they stick in the sharp thing right through all the layers into the tumour itself and pull some out. And in the pulling it out, they spread the cancer around the body.
Wow, I've never heard that before.
No, I haven't either.
Biopsies are very, very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. But there are a number of other dangerous things that are going on. I mean, some people have a camera stuck up their arse because they've got they believe there's a colon issue. There's a risk of having a camera stuck up your ass. Some significant risks, which probably anybody with vivid imagination can guess at. And so the colon cancer is very slow in its progression. And so who's more damaged, the people having the rectal examination or the people with the cancer? Well, it's probably about 50-50. I can't remember the figures, but tests can be really dangerous, and colon cancer might kill you 15 years later. So what happens if you get a test, you've got colon cancer? Now, it wouldn't have finished you off for 10 or 15 years, but you decide to take chemotherapy, and then you're dead in 6 months, or whatever it might be, because the survival rate of chemotherapy is close to 0, but the survival rate of colon cancer is quite high.
Yeah, because survival is 5 years, isn't it? Isn't that classed as survivor?
It doesn't matter whether all your hair's fallen out, you can't talk or walk, you're still a survivor.
Jeez. And that's probably about how long it takes for the chemotherapy or radiotherapy to finally catch up with you, because that just destroys your white blood cells, doesn't it, either of those?
Well, people survive not because of chemotherapy, but despite chemotherapy, because otherwise the statistics would show that placebos would be less effective. If it worked, a placebo would be less effective. And it's not. More effective.
2.7%.
That's incredible.
In Australia,
Wow.
There are statistics, but it's just hard to believe. And everybody will say, well, I know people who've survived. They had chemotherapy, or I've had chemotherapy and I've survived. Well, it does happen.
Jeez. What's your thoughts on CBD oil and the cannabis treatments for cancers?
Well, I've just seen a video, somebody showed it to me this morning, of Aurora manufacturer in Canada. Check it out, Aurora Cannabis. They've got the biggest building in the world growing cannabis currently. The expansion rate is enormous. All the small growers will be priced out, or are being priced out, and it's a massive, massive industry. They've got a genetically modified strain now with 0 THC, which of course pleases the government idiots. That industry is changing super rapidly, very, very dramatic changes, and the industry is getting ready for UK legalization next year. That's what the industry is prepared. But are we going to get genetically modified marijuana? What is it? What are we going to get? Who knows?
Probably. They're not going to release.
There will be a synthetic strain, and it won't have anything like the goodness in it, I imagine.
Well, I don't know. There's big business that, like Aurora, which want it the way they want it. They've invested billions. It's worth watching. Just see, you can't believe the scale of it.
We'll have a look at it. We actually had a problem. We were selling CBD oil from a company over here in the UK, and we had a payment gateway deleted off the website. They refused to allow us to sell.
They're doing that to everybody with CBD.
What I found hilarious about it though is every payment gateway behind it has a merchant bank that actually take the transaction, and the same merchant bank that deleted our account are the same ones that our Holland and Barrett use, and they sell it. I'm sure their account's worth a lot more than ours, so that will probably be why. But I mean, it's certainly an interesting area, because the fact that the legalization of it in America in various states, and for recreational use in America in various states, and the legalisation of CBD oil to a decent level, 25%, that's not bad quality. It's kind of come overnight, really. And it does make you think, have they just tried to take over the market, and these corporations are going to come in and give you a massively watered down version, synthetic version, that has none of the benefits that the people that wanted it to be legal for?
Well, industry is powerful. The big pharmaceutical industry is way more powerful, and they bribe the lawmakers in their favour. So sooner or later, unless we change everything, which I'm in favour of, it'll all get shut down. I mean, everybody's getting deplatformed. For information is getting almost impossible to get now. Our freedoms of speech. People are just disappearing. Their voices are disappearing, aren't they?
They are, but then I think the positive to take from that is that you see this system, as you said there, the big pharma's all powerful. We look at big banks and governments and corporations as all this power. But the fact that they're deleting people like yourselves, people all over the world. The fact that Mark Zuckerberg sat there worried and deleting a guy like yourself from Somerset, England, because he's worried about what he's putting out. That, I think, is the biggest positive we can take from this. That they are scared of this information coming out.
Oh yeah.
So that's the biggest positive for us to take, I think. And
it's a positive as long as they don't succeed.
Well, they make it harder. We'll come up with something different.
Yeah, we'll go down swinging.
We will, absolutely. Cool. So what we'll do is we'll put all the website and so on and address in the description, so that if people want to find out more information and watch more videos of yours, then they can do. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and it'd be great to get you up in the studio when we're all set up and we can do something face to face. Maybe do a live experiment.
Yeah, you could get some electric stuff in there that heals groins. That'd be good.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll take that. Save me a fortune.
So maybe on that in personal health stuff, let's talk again at another time, and let me talk you through what some of the options may be rather than an operation.
I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll be at home tomorrow. If you want to Skype me tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I'll be in the office. Yeah, so I'll get your details off Jay.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Okay, lovely to speak to you both.
You too. Magic. Absolute pleasure. Take care of yourself. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. All the best.
Thank you. Bye.
Clive.
So that was good, Jay. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, that was good. I've always felt it'd be a decent one with Clive. He's so softly spoken. I could listen to him. I could listen to him for hours.
Yeah. I'm kind of at that point where I just think I could just go into a trance.
Are you going to yawn now 10 times?
No. I'm a professional, Jay.
Brilliant.
And as a professional, I can tell the audience they've been listening to the Non-Binary Elephant podcast, sponsored by Miles Franklin, protecting your family's financial future from corporate greed and government corruption.
I love how we just talked about sponsors and then we've got one.
Yeah, but these guys are anti-government, so
good.
Balls to it.
We like this. We like this. So we've got some good guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, haven't we? We've got Eve Fisher, who is a Australian journalist. We're going to come on and talk about press freedom and freedom of speech and the freedom of the press, etc.
Yeah, and the erosion thereof.
Yes, and we then have...
We've got Mia One, the artist, coming on. I want to talk about him and his art. I don't just want it to be just about the mural and Corbyn and all that sort of nonsense, but obviously we will touch on that because it was a pretty big splash.
Yes, and then we are excited to say that the first episode in our new studio, I haven't got a date for it yet, will be our first sports-related podcast. A good friend of yours, isn't it, guys? Yeah,
Shane Nicholson, formerly of Derby County, Sheffield United, a million other clubs.
More clubs than Tiger.
Yeah, he's going to come on and talk to us about lots of different things, really, really interesting stuff about sports psychology and drug addiction, depression, anxiety, all these things. So it'll be real interesting. I work with him at the moment, but we'll get him to come into the studio and have a chat.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Take it easy.